What's going on, people? Welcome to another Emotion Football live stream. My name is Alam, and today we got another news recap. We have a lot of free agency news to talk about. The last stream I did was, I think, 5 p.m., so about 5 hours after the start of the legal tampering period. It's been about 30 hours since then. So, man, we have a lot of moves today to talk about. I tried to get a tally going of how many players that have to be spoken about, and it's more than I could count. So it's going to be a long stream today. Shout out to the 7 people watching live. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Two very important forms of engagement for the growth of a YouTube channel. If you're watching this on replay after the fact, you have the same opportunity to support the content. So with the formalities out of the way, we're gonna get right into it. Where is the first banner at? So I was hoping maybe Daniel would be in here. I see Jared is in here. Yes, sir. Okay, I'll send you the link. Um, oh man, tough luck, tough luck. But I see Sai's in here as well. Shout out to Sai. But yeah, I see no Daniel, and that sucks because we're starting with the Colts, and we're starting with Daniel Jones. The Colts made their quarterback decision. I have to find the stream that I spoke about this during one of the quarterback musical chair streams. I threw out the name Daniel Jones. I just realized there's an unnecessary comma in the banner, and I cannot help but change that. But yeah, there was a quarterback musical chair stream where I talked about how that fit makes a lot of sense. One, Daniel Jones is the kind of quarterback where you can have him compete for the starting job, and if he doesn't get it, I don't think he's going to be horribly upset about being a backup quarterback. He's not really a player that can stick his chest out and say, I'm better than being a backup. If I don't win the quarterback job, you have to trade me somewhere else. He can't really say that. But he's also won a playoff game. So, like, as far as people that have some type of starting upside, I don't think he's any good. But it's not like there's a ton of options out there. So this is probably one of the better players that is willing to maybe be a backup. Like, you have to understand that that is the kind of player you want. If you want to lie to the world, actually not even about the world. If you want to lie to yourselves and still say that you're invested in Anthony Richardson, you can't go and outright get a starter, right? Like, the Colts could never get a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers. You can't make those moves because those are starting quarterbacks. Those are players that have to start, and if you bench them, it's going to be dramatic. You have to get a quarterback that has some ability to be a backup and somebody who'll accept it. And Daniel Jones is that guy. From a skill set standpoint, he's a mobile quarterback. He's the kind of quarterback that if Dayball, the things that Dayball did to get Daniel Jones to thrive, you figure Steichen could at least do that. Now, I don't think it'll work because I just don't think Daniel Jones is particularly good. But yeah, I think again, if you have to get a quarterback that has some starting upside, but also a player that you can bench and have as the backup, Daniel Jones probably one of the better options for that specific role. So I think that's why he got signed, and that's why he's the guy. As far as the quarterback competition goes, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, I feel like if either player loses to the other player, that's a career indictment. If you're Anthony Richardson and you lose a quarterback competition to Daniel Jones, that's got to be the end of your career, man. And then if you're Daniel Jones and you can't beat AR in a quarterback competition, also probably like the end of your, starting career. So this quarterback competition is hilarious. The whole like careers are on the line. So that's going to be something to watch for. The other signing that they got done was Charvarius Ward. So that's the player that started for the Niners and the Chiefs. The Niners and the Chiefs, has played in big games, has played in Super Bowls. So yeah, it's a top of the market kind of signing that they made. They paid him $20 million a year. So they've been forking out top dollar for the pieces in the secondary. Cam Bynum, $15 million a year. Charvarius Ward, $20 million a year. But the bigger thing that happened for them, I realized that they lost their center and their guard, Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, to Indianapolis. So that's tough. That's tough. They've lost two pieces there. They have to replace both. That's going to be difficult. Colts need much better than Daniel. Chavez Ward to Colts 3 years is a good signing. Oh, they definitely need much better than Daniel. But the problem is, Sai, they would never get much better than Daniel. They would never get much better than Daniel because they have to act like they still like Anthony Richardson. That's the big issue. The big issue is they couldn't go out and get like, again, any quarterback you think is the best quarterback in the cycle this year or this offseason. If it's Russell Wilson or Darnold, whoever you think the best quarterback is, they couldn't actually get that player because they're trying to tell the world that no, we still believe in Anthony Richardson. So they had to get a backup. And again, as far as backups go, I think Daniel Jones is probably one of the better backups to have. Big up time to shine and not loving our offseason, to be honest, and how other teams are getting better around us. Yeah, we're going to speak on it. We're going to speak on the Colts are the Chiefs are probably going to get spoken about a little bit later in the stream. But yeah, it's been a weird offseason for you guys. But yeah, just to briefly wrap up the Colts, they got their backup quarterback. I like the signing. Charvarius Ward, I like the signing as well, but they have a lot more work to do. That's the thing I want to leave you guys on with the Colts. They lost 2 starting offensive linemen. I don't think they'll be able to replace 2 in the draft. So that is, when you talk about having a quarterback competition between 2 quarterbacks that aren't good enough, giving them an offensive line that has a glaring weakness, that sounds like a bad idea. So that's something to keep in mind. They got to get some offensive linemen in. The next team we're going to look at is Daniel Jones's old team, the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings went crazy. They went crazy since the first stream that I did. So again, I did my first stream 5 o'clock, roughly 5 hours into the legal tampering period, and there was quite a bit to talk about, but not like this. Since then, the Vikings signed 2 starting defensive tackles and 2 offensive linemen and a member of the secondary. Byron Murphy. No, hold on. I got they did get Byron Murphy. Yeah, so they paid Byron Murphy big money, and then they brought in Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave to the defensive line, and Will Fries and Ryan Kelly to the offensive line. So the main thing is with the Vikings is they needed to address the interior of their fronts. Their centers and guards had their quarterbacks under pressure all year last year, and their defensive tackles were not a strength of the team. What you're seeing here is a team that can be aggressive about their needs because they don't have a quarterback to pay. They literally just have one quarterback under contract, and he's a rookie quarterback. So that really helps their cause. I think they're going to have to give JJ McCarthy a pretty loaded roster because he's really young, he's really inexperienced, and he's coming off a major injury. So they're kind of doing what they have to do. But yeah, that's a lot of signings. This is a great start to the offseason. I'm looking at their needs. Let me find Minnesota's depth chart. I'm looking at their needs, and I talked about this on the stream yesterday. I love when teams plug up their main issues or like plug up their main holes. At least give themselves an option for some of their main weaknesses so that they don't have to draft by need when the draft comes around. You want to be able to draft for value. I'm looking at the Vikings roster right now, and they're missing one corner, maybe a nose tackle, but that's not a premium position. And then maybe one offensive line spot. So you're talking about 2 parts of the team, one corner spot, and I think the left guard. 2 spots that need addressing. They could easily go corner and offensive line 1 and 2 in the draft. But they also have more time to bring in, some type of option to where that's not even necessary. So Minnesota is positioning themselves to go into the draft with the luxury of drafting by best player available as opposed to drafting by need. As far as the players go, I don't know that much about Will Fries and Ryan Kelly. I know the Colts interior of their line has supposed to have been pretty good. They both got paid respectable numbers. Ryan Kelly, only $9 million a year, but he is, I think, into his mid-30s. So it's a lot for his age and his position. I imagine those are good players. But Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, I have a little bit more insight about them. Jonathan Allen is really good. He's just a bit injury prone as of the last, forget the last few years. Dating back to the drafts, he was supposed to go, I think, top 10 in his draft. He fell into the 20s because of injury concerns. He's always had to play through some type of injuries in Washington. He obviously missed a big chunk of last year in Washington. So while he's really good, I don't know how often he's going to be on the field. Hargrave, that's the tricky one because at best he's like a one-way player in the sense that he's good at rushing the passer, but he can't defend the run at all. He was a big liability in Philadelphia. I didn't pay attention to the Niners enough to see how he did there, but he was a huge liability in Philadelphia against the run. Extraordinary against the pass, like a phenomenal pass rusher. But then he began to regress in San Francisco, what I heard. And obviously he had a major injury knocking him out for most of the year last year. So older player off a major injury, had already began to decline, was only a one-way player. I don't know how much this is going to pan out. There's concerns with both these defensive tackles they signed from an age standpoint. What I will say, though, is that Brian Flores is a G. And I trust Brian Flores so much. And I think that's like my big thing. I remember 2 years ago, I looked at the Vikings defense and I was like, oh, they should be shit. And then Brian Flores had them playing okay. And then last year, I'm like, oh, okay. They actually gave him some more pieces. I'm sure their defense is going to be good. And it ended up being much better than good. Brian Flores tends to get the absolute most out of the personnel. So that's actually where I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. I think if another team with a lesser defensive coordinator signed Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, I would have some questions about it. But the Vikings got these players. I'm supporting it. So I like the moves. I like that Minnesota is aggressive. All indications are that JJ McCarthy is going to start. I talked about it on stream about a week ago. I think that's the right move. I think KOC is great at scheming up easy opportunities for his quarterbacks. And I think you just got to throw the young guy in the deep end. He's got to play. That's the only way he's going to get better. He's not going to be playing in chaotic circumstances. He has KOC. He has Justin Jefferson. He's going to have a much improved offensive line. So, I'm a fan of just getting JJ McCarthy to play and learning from it there. And just like letting him learn from that and going from there. The signing from the Colts bolsters the interior offensive line a key need. The estimated 70 with Fries offers long-term stability for a line protecting McCarthy. No, exactly. You got it spot on. Will Fries. What a name. What a name. But we're going to move on from the Vikings to the Carolina Panthers, who also made a lot of moves. So they made a flurry of signings, mainly on the defensive side of the ball. You got Tershawn Wharton from the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a starter beside Chris Jones. Patrick Jones, who was a rotational edge rusher from Minnesota. Bobby Brown, who was the Rams' nose tackle, run stuffer. Michael Jackson, I put those two names beside each other for a reason. Michael Jackson was a starting corner for them last year. Brady Christensen is just depth at the offensive line, and then they cut Miles Sanders. So a flurry of moves here. I don't think neither of these signings are outstanding signings, but again, I think nothing here is particularly expensive. They're not going to set themselves back financially. They got a little bit better with the fact that they got Wharton and Patrick Jones. Bobby Brown, I don't know. I never thought the Rams' rush defense was ever particularly good, so I think signing the run stuffer from a bad run defense is not really the way. But the thing you have to keep in mind is that they're adding Bobby Brown and Tershawn Wharton to a front that already has Derek Brown. Derek Brown is the guy. Derek Brown is an excellent defensive tackle. So they're not necessarily asking these players to be Superman. They're asking them to complement Derek Brown. So I think that they're going to be able to do that. It's a really good defensive tackle class. I'm sure they're also going to draft somebody, and then that'll give them a lot of options, right? It looks like they've bolstered the interior of their defensive line. However, Patrick Jones on the edge is not going to be enough. So they got to go edge round one for sure because their edge rushers last year were not productive enough. And a rotational guy from Minnesota, he was a backup. I think he got 5 sacks, so that's pretty solid as a backup, but you can't all of a sudden assume he's going to go get 10, 11, or 12. So I think you got, again, good depth, but they need more than good depth. Michael Jackson was already there last year. Christensen was already there last year. So it's a little bit of progress from Carolina. But truthfully, they need more. We saw them sign Morig on the first day, and they re-signed JC Horn on the first day as well. So they've made some marginal upgrades, but I think they need more. They need more substantial upgrades. They were. It looks like they were going to get Milton Williams. That fell apart because New England did a lot of bidding. But yeah, no, like good moves, but not great, and they need great moves. So a little bit disappointing as a whole for Carolina. But again, there's still time. This is literally still day 2, and there's still some good players out there. So we're gonna see what they do. I also think that it's surprising that they haven't really made moves on the offensive side of the ball, because I don't think they have nearly enough offensively, especially from a weapon standpoint. And the way they need an edge rusher, I don't even think they have the luxury of being able to go receiver round 1. And there might not even be a receiver to take at number 8 if T Mac and Travis Hunter go at the top of the draft. So Carolina, they have some more moves they should be making. Next team we're going to look at, Los Angeles Chargers. So very interesting signings here. You got Najee Harris, Dante Jackson, and Bradley Bozeman. Now, I wish Jen Will was here to talk about this. I really do, because I know he was trashing Bradley Bozeman last year in the chat. He said that they needed to upgrade from Bradley Bozeman. And funnily enough, Bradley Bozeman ended up getting re-signed, so he's their starting center. I think they do have all 5 of their starting offensive linemen now, but this is a guy that the one Chargers fan I know wasn't a fan of. So there's that. And then I wish King was here as well, because he could have spoke on Dante Jackson and Najee Harris. The Chargers signing 2 Pittsburgh Steelers to the team. And these aren't particularly, big signings either. From the standpoint of, like, I think these are both players that Pittsburgh needed to upgrade. I don't think Najee Harris was good enough. Oh, also, by the way, I'm just realizing that there's a name missing. Defensive tackle Tair Tart. Let me see if I got that spelling right. Teai. Okay, perfect. But yeah, put it back here. Tair Tart was on the team last year. They re-signed him. So they re-signed Khalil Mack. They re-signed Tair Tart. And the names that they're adding, they re-signed Bozeman as well. The name that they're adding is Najee Harris and Dante Jackson. Again, with those 2 players, I can't understand why they signed Bozeman. Dumb move. They need to upgrade. No, this is true. So this is what Genwell was saying as well. I think with the 2 players that they brought from Pittsburgh, Dante Jackson to replace Christian Fulton is interesting, because I think they're more or less at the same level, but Dante Jackson is going to be a little bit cheaper. But I don't think they should have aimed to get a player of a similar level. I don't think Christian Fulton was good enough. They got some good production from young corners. Maybe they believe in their ability to draft, and they just wanted a vet to be a placeholder in case that happens, in case they have to play. But I don't get it. I don't really get the really conservative approach to free agency. If you look at the money that they've handed out, $6.5 million a year to Dante Jackson, 5.2 to Najee Harris, 5.5 to Tart, 3.2 to Bradley Bozeman. The really only serious money they gave was to Khalil Mack. But yeah, the Chargers have had a pretty passive approach to free agency. I know Harbaugh is like a program kind of a coach. Like, he doesn't want to just add a bunch of names from outside. He really wants to grow what he has. And the free offseason, the approach to the offseason is very indicative of that. Najee Harris, I think, is really interesting, because I would hate Najee Harris in a lot of situations. I don't think Najee Harris is that good, but he's such a perfect scheme fit for this offensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator that I don't like either. But yeah, Greg Roman is a power running kind of an offensive coordinator. Lots of heavy formations, lots of tight ends, fullbacks, blockers, and whatnot. That's what he likes. So a player like Najee Harris that's going to just run up the middle and get the tough yards, that's what his offense demands. I don't love that of his offense. I don't necessarily think that you can win Super Bowls like that. I think it's a little bit too conservative. So yeah, it's almost like, I don't know, 2 things that I don't like being perfect matches for each other. From that standpoint, I guess they're gonna get what they're looking for from Najee Harris. I just think that they should look for more. I was actually really excited when I saw that they were gonna get J.K. Dobbins, because I think you put a dynamic back in that kind of a system and you have a little bit more of a splash play potential, which I think makes the offense a little bit more catered to modern football. Like, I think the Eagles actually had a great example of an explosive rushing attack. So not just, I think the idea of having a rushing attack or being a run first football team, a lot of the times people envision a slow, methodical team that gets 4 or 5 yards at a time. But the Eagles showed that it's possible to have an explosive rushing attack. I thought at times when they had J.K. Dobbins last year, the rushing attack looked more dynamic. When they had Gus Edwards, it was a mess. I think Najee Harris, like, who have I seen in this? Oh, it's gonna look like Gus. It's actually gonna look like Ravens Gus Edwards. Um, and again, I don't know. Like, I know that that's what Greg Roman wants, but I don't think it's great. So I'm not really a fan of the Chargers offseason thus far. I think they're kind of messing up. I think they could. I understand that Harbaugh has his principles about roster building, but I think even within his principles, you could do better. I see some teams moving all out and some teams making dumb moves and not upgrading their team. This is what it is. Some teams are good at the off season and some teams aren't. For 1 year, considered a good value for his consistent 1,000-yard rushing seasons. See, and that's the thing. Like, I can't. Me not being a fan of Najee is not from the standpoint of the fact that he's not good. It's just from the standpoint of, like, I think he's a committee member. I think Najee Harris should be a part of your committee. He should not be the lead guy. So we're going to see. I hope the Chargers draft somebody high at the running back position. But I don't think they have a complete enough roster to do that. So that's a bit of a mess. Not a fan. But the next team we're going to look at, the Las Vegas Raiders, who made some pretty minor moves. And I think that their approach to their offseason is very careful and very measured. So they paid $12 million a year to Malcolm Kuntz, but $8 million a year to Jeremy Chin, which we talked about yesterday. $5 million to Alex Kappa, which happened before free agency. $3 million to Landon Roberts, and I think $4 million or less to Lonnie Johnson and Eric Stokes. So I say this all to say, the Raiders, Harris Jackson, Max are all okay signings. Yeah, I hear it. They're all okay. But yeah, when it comes to this Raiders team, it really seems like they're going to let a lot of young players play this year, because it doesn't look like they're signing a bunch of vets that are guaranteed to play 17 games. It looks like the same way I talked about Daniel Jones being a player that could play or could be on the bench and he'll be okay with it. Players like Landon Roberts and Eric Stokes and Lonnie Johnson and what are some of the other names? Who else? Actually, no, that's it. Lonnie Johnson, Eric Stokes, Landon Roberts. Those are players that you can sign and they can play if you need them to. But if you bench them for a young player, that's fine as well. And it looks like that's really what they're going for. They gave Malcolm Kuntz a 1-year deal, an edge rusher that showed some potential. But a very measured approach to free agency. They paid Jeremy Chin $8 million a year, but that's to replace Trevon Moehrig, who is a much more expensive player than $8 million a year. So it's been a pretty cheap offseason. It's been a pretty measured offseason. You're looking to get high floor vets that probably don't have the highest ceilings. And it just looks like they're trying to stabilize the team and lay a foundation to, like, build a culture. It does not look like they have an aggressive approach to building this team. I thought maybe with Tom Brady, you would see some fireworks. You would see some aggression about building the team, but there's none of that at all. Pete Carroll's literally like over 70. So I just thought that maybe there would be a sense of urgency, not to get a little dark on us. But no, man, this is not a team that's looking to be great next year. This is a team that's just looking to not be garbage. But I think they're building up to maybe be a 7-8 win team at best. If everything goes well, but it probably won't go well, perfectly. But big acquisition so far in the offseason is Geno Smith, but you got to bring in more than Geno Smith. You can't bring in Geno Smith and then hand him a worse team than he had in Seattle, because things didn't even go well with Seattle last year. So yeah, not a fan of these signings. As far as the players specifically, Eric Stokes played for Green Bay. I think he was playing in Green Bay last year, because they had Ballantyne, Keyshawn Nixon. Okay, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, he never really panned out as I think a second round pick, maybe a first round pick. Landon Roberts was the first backup linebacker off the bench for the Raiders. And then I think, for the Steelers. And then I think in Vegas, he's going to do the same thing, because I'm looking at their linebacker. Actually, no, you know what? He's probably going to replace Bob Spillane. So you're signing a backup from Pittsburgh and asking him to start. It's not even like he's a young player with upside. He's an older guy. And then, yeah, Malcolm Kuntz, he's going to start opposite of Max Crosby. No, for sure. Like, that's the thing. Because it's so clear what they're doing, I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, oh, I think they're doing the wrong thing. I think they're doing the right thing. But the right thing is just not flashy, and it's not going to wow anybody. But, like, yeah, you would hope that they have some young players that develop, that become better, that begin to, I guess, form or begin to, like, give them an idea of what a good team would look like. And then they can spend money to really complement those pieces. But yeah, the next team we're going to look at, the Arizona Cardinals. So the Arizona Cardinals got Jacoby Brissett, Kelvin Beachum, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and Zay Jones. So the Cardinals having a similar offseason to the Raiders, you could say, from the standpoint of, like, Josh Sweat aside, pretty measured offseason. So Akeem Davis-Gaither started for the Bengals last year. Did you expect more? I kind of thought that because of Pete Carroll and Tom Brady, and because they had a brand new project, and they started off the project by trading for Geno Smith, I thought, oh, okay, maybe they're going to be a little bit aggressive, because I know they have money to spend. But yeah, I thought that maybe it was looking that way, but I'm not mad that they're doing it this way. But I am mad about what the Cardinals are doing. I've said this for 2 off seasons now. And before last year, I did a preview, a season preview for the Cardinals. And something I talked about is how they're not ambitious in the offseason. They don't try to go get great players. They don't try to put the money up to make really, really big improvements. They're a team that's definitely trying to build through the draft, but I don't think there's any reason for them to do that. I don't think Kyler Murray is on an outrageous deal, right? He's paid. He's not on a rookie deal, but he's not on a contract that is just unworkable. There's a bunch of quarterbacks on more expensive deals. They're a team that, honestly, because they're not supremely talented, they don't have a bunch of players on big money. The Cardinals have money to spend. They just refuse to spend it. Again, Josh Sweat, great player, but Akeem Davis-Gaither, steady linebacker. Zay Jones, steady receiver 4, maybe. He was on the team last year. Kelvin Beachum on the team last year, older offensive tackle. Probably going to be a depth guy this year. And Jacoby Brissett, a backup quarterback. For what it's worth, I will say Jacoby Brissett, I think, is a good signing, because Kyler Murray always misses time. He always misses games with injuries. So the Cardinals, year in, year out, have to play some games with their backup quarterback. Last year, they had Clayton Tune, I think a 5th-round pick. He never really looked that good. So it is good that they got a more competent backup quarterback. If they're trying to be good, they should have somebody that can maybe win a game if they need him. If they need him to, and Jacoby Brissett gives them more of more chances of that happening than Clayton Tune. So that's good. But yeah, man, Cardinals never really spending money, never making a point to get, like, as good as they can. I look at their team and I still see holes. Josh Sweat is nice, but I would still say that they need more at the edge rush spot. And maybe they could get that in the draft, but I'm looking at the interior of their defensive line. There's still nobody there. And again, the names are going off those players keep getting signed. Offensively, maybe they feel like they're set at the offensive line. Maybe that's it. Maybe they just feel like they're good on the offense. I think they could have, I don't know. I think they could have been more aggressive about upgrades. I don't think their receivers are good enough. Like, I don't think that Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, and Greg Dortch is good enough. I would have gone to get a playmaker. But yeah, the Cardinals, very slow and measured approach to things. And I can't say I understand it. Maybe it's an ownership thing. Maybe their owner is just really cheap, and this just is what it is. But yeah, I can't say I'm a fan. Cleveland Browns, a team that's having a pretty quiet offseason, but for justified reasons. They traded for Kenny Pickett, who is now, I think, the only quarterback they have healthy on the roster. They cut Dalvin Tomlinson. They signed Cornelius Lucas. That's going to be a backup offensive tackle. They signed Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, somebody who had flashes as a young player for the Bucs as an edge rusher. Going to give him an opportunity to rediscover those flashes. And they re-signed Devin Bush, who they had on the defense last year. So something you have to keep in mind is that they actually were an average defense statistically last year, despite being one of the worst teams in football, because the offense was what was really holding them back. But defensively, they retained Devin Bush. They cut Dalvin Tomlinson, but he was an older player as is, and there's plenty of defensive tackles in the draft. Yeah, Browns probably going to be able to bring all of their defense back. Yeah, it looks like they're bringing their whole defense back except Juan Thornhill. But offensively, yeah, they kind of have no way of not being screwed. They can't spend a bunch of money because of the Watson situation. They were never really going to be able to bring in the best, particularly great quarterback, right? Kenny Pickett is probably the best they could do. They're going to have to draft a quarterback at 2 and hope it pans out. They're drafting a quarterback in a historically bad quarterback class, so that's tough. The best running back they have under contract is Jerome Ford, and he showed that he's not good enough last year. They could probably bolster the offensive line as well. And I don't think they're good enough at receivers. So the offense is really and truly screwed, and there's not much the Browns can do about it. As far as the Kenny Pickett trade, the thing is, I can understand why people might think Kenny Pickett is the best they can do. I don't think giving up draft capital for Kenny Pickett was worth it, though, because he's still going to cost, I think, like $2 million. I would have given $2 million to Carson Wentz. Like, the point is, I think he's trash, but I think there's a lot of trash quarterbacks out there, and you can get a trash quarterback for $2 million pretty easily. I don't think that Kenny Pickett this trade makes any sense, even though what they gave up was minimal, a trade back from 5 to 6. But yeah, I don't think they had to give up any draft compensation to get a Kenny Pickett caliber quarterback. So yeah, it's a pretty uneventful offseason for the Browns as expected. And we'll see what they could do in the draft. The next situation we're looking at is the Houston Texans. Houston Texans made a big move. They traded for CJGJ, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, for my Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's a great trade from the Texans standpoint. They lost Eric Murray. Let me take a look at the depth chart, see who the other safety is. So yeah, I think they lost Eric Murray. I'm assuming he's going to play with Jimmy Ward, even though I think he plays more like Jimmy Ward. You know what? No, he can be a post safety. So yeah, I think he's going to play alongside Jimmy Ward or Kalen Bullock, 3rd-round pick from last year. But the point is that they needed a safety because they lost one. And CJGJ, if you take in the fact that the bonuses stay in Philly and they don't even inherit the whole of his contract, I think they're getting great value. They're getting a great player. I know a lot of people are talking about how the Eagles are trading CJGJ because he's hard to deal with. I think Houston is the perfect spot for a player that way. I don't even necessarily buy into that. But man, if they can deal with Azeez Al-Shaair, they can definitely deal with CJGJ. And I'm just thinking of Azeez Al-Shaair and Chauncey in the same defense. Oh, and that is 200% dog. That is 200% dog. But yeah, as for the rest of their signings, Houston is having a very weird offseason for a team with a rookie quarterback. It seems like they're really anticipating the CJ Stroud contract being huge, and they're trying to be responsible with their spending. But Laken Tomlinson, apparently he's going to start at guard. Disaster. Laken Tomlinson started for the Seahawks last year. Big up, King. Oh, bro, King, real quick, before I continue with the Texans, the Chargers are signing Dante Jackson and Najee Harris. Why are they signing Pittsburgh's mid? Why are they signing Pittsburgh's mid? Your team is getting cooked. Not gonna lie, yo, for just getting gashed from a personnel standpoint, but bro, this is the price you have to pay when you're good and everybody's value gets inflated, and now you have to pay people, and you have to decide who's a core part of your team and who's not. And unfortunately, CJGJ was looked at on the outside of that. I think they're probably going to extend the center Cam Jurgens. They're probably going to extend Reed Blankenship, who's younger. And yeah, when it comes to money that has to be spent, I just don't think they look at the 28-year-old safety and see like, oh, this is a guy. So yeah, it just sucks, bro. Like the thing is, if we lost to the Rams, we wouldn't have an offseason that looks nearly like this, and we would have literally been the same team. But that just happens when you win a Super Bowl, bro. Like your team becomes really valuable. It doesn't fit within the salary cap, and it needs to cook up something fast. You know what it is though? I think he needs to cook up something fast at like one or two spots, but I actually think we're okay generally. Like we have a young player that looked good last year to replace everybody we've lost except one, which is safety. But even that, we have Sidney Brown who missed the first half of the first 3 quarters of last year because he tore his ACL at the end of his rookie year, right? So the thing is like apparently he's gonna get the opportunities. I don't think he's that good, but he looked decent in his rookie year. So we're just gonna have to see. But bro, Jalix Hunt and Moro Ojomo, I believe in them for sure. And bro, at the end of the day, there's not really a whole lot of money to spend. Like young players have to step up. The same way Milton Williams wasn't like a household name a year ago, and he became a household name last year. Same thing has to happen with Moro Ojomo. The same way Josh Sweat, people didn't really respect him last year. He had to take a pay cut last year, bro. He was on the verge of getting cut by Philly, and then he made himself a household name. CJGJ literally has been moved on for 4 off seasons in a row. I'm dead serious. 4 years in a row, CJGJ has been gotten rid of by a team. So yeah, like these players that we're losing are not these like they're not superstar, just amazing players. Like they became superstars in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia has to have more players become superstars. Like there's no big moves we're gonna make. Like motherfuckers just got to develop young talent. Will be different. 100%. There's no way you could possibly be the same with different players. The team as a whole is gonna be different. Like you never in football, you never come back the same team ever. That's it just never works that way. But yeah, back to the Texans because we are gonna get at the Eagles later on. Dog, their offseason is ridiculous because they have no reason to be this cheap. CJ Stroud does not cost that much money. He's still on his rookie deal. And if you look at this money that they're handing out, right? They've not handed out a contract worth more than $4.7 million a year. They're out here handing out baby money over and over and over again. Now, they're tearing up their offensive line. And one of the players that they're adding to play is going to be Laken Tomlinson. Laken Tomlinson was on Seattle last year. Seattle's offensive line was garbage. So I don't think he's going to be much better all of a sudden in a new system. You got Darrell Taylor. That's a backup edge rusher. He's going to be solid probably. Like I think he had 4 or 5 sacks last year. Justin Watson, that's like a wide receiver 4. And then even before this, Mario Edwards, depth guy. Nick Neiman, special teamer. Tremont Smith, special teamer, I think. Derek Barnett, rotational guy. Braxton Berrios, special team. Like, they are signing. This isn't even like, they're not signing mid. Houston is signing just depth guys over and over and over and over again. Like, I don't understand why they're doing this. CJ Stroud is not under, he's not on a big contract yet. I think they might be bracing for the big contract that's about to come. But bro, I think they have to take a better, even the CJGJ move, right? It's not expensive. The part of like Philly has already paid Chauncey a bunch of his contract. The rest of his contract that Houston is inheriting, it's not that costly. I don't understand this approach. I don't think that they have a good enough team to win a Super Bowl, and they're not taking any steps towards getting good enough as of yet. I don't know if there's a big move coming, but their offensive line is not it right now. Their offensive line is not it. I saw what they're going to do. They're apparently looking to play Titus Howard at left tackle. He was their right tackle for the last few years. They're looking to play Blake Fisher, their second round pick from last year, at right tackle, and now Laken Tomlinson at left tackle. And they still need to find two other starters. Like, this shit is a mess. This shit is a mess. Like, CJ Stroud deserves so much better. They're gonna ask him to be Superman next year. Like, I think D'Amico's gonna have the defense playing good football, but like, you got to give CJ some more help, and they're not giving it to him. So we're going to see what they do in the draft. The way their offseason is going, it's really making it look like they're going to go offense in the draft. But we're going to have to see how that goes. Another team having a stinker of an offseason, Miami Dolphins. So they got Zach Wilson, right? Now, this is the thing. Heart to heart, right? Honestly, like I'm looking at everybody in their eyes. We all know Zach Wilson is going to touch the football field because Tua is not playing 17 games. So the Dolphins, who I think have the most important backup quarterback spot, they filled that spot with Zach Wilson. That shit is a disaster. Because the thing is, the Mike McDonald's, what's his name? McDaniels. The Mike McDaniels scheme, all these Shanahan McVay schemes, they're about precision, right? Quarterback has to understand when he's, takes his second step, where should he be reading? If that's not there, next step, where should he be reading? It's about being on schedule and on time. Zach Wilson, most people think he's garbage, but even the people that look at his redeeming qualities, even the people that liked him in the draft, they would never tell you that he's precise, on time, and on target. His play style is more like gunslinger. Like, he runs around, scrambles around, and just chucks the football wherever his eyes tell him to throw it. Like, even at his best, which is still pretty low, he's not disciplined, or, like I said, on time and on schedule. How is he gonna play in this offense, man? How? Does Mike McDaniels really think he's going to he's going to coach discipline into Zach Wilson? That shit is a mess. Now, they signed James Daniels. King, I'm glad you're here. I heard James Daniels is good but injury prone. Their left tackle, Teron Armstead, good but injury prone. Their quarterback, good but injury prone. Now they have another offensive lineman, good but injury prone. But yeah, that shit is... I mean, we all know that Miami had quite a bit, like, they would have to do quite a bit to inspire people and make people believe that they're contenders. The default is always that Miami isn't a contender, but they're not really even doing anything to make it look like they're trying to have us think that they might be a contender. Larry Borum is a depth offensive line signing. Ifiatu Melifonwu, he missed most of last year in Detroit. Apparently, he was good whenever he would play. So this is another kind of situation where they're evaluating somebody who didn't play a lot of minutes and assuming that he can take on more minutes. And then Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. This is the guy who had like 12 catches but 8 touchdowns in Tennessee last year. I don't know if you guys remember that storyline, but Tennessee had a receiver that had like 12 catches and 8 touchdowns or some shit. He's the guy. So like, he's probably going to come in and score a few touchdowns, but like, Ashton Davis is a downgrade from Javon Holland, right? Javon Holland left for the Giants. They have done zero to get better. Zero. So like, I mean, again, uninspiring offseason. It kind of gives me the feeling that this is going to be the end of the line for Mike McDaniels. Like, all these moves kind of just suggest to me that things are going to fall apart. So, for my 100%, another team getting our mid-ass shit. This is real, bro. James Daniels. But yeah, you guys definitely have some pieces to replace. But man, like, you look at all these teams, a lot of teams are not having good off seasons. This is just like, I don't know. It's a basic set of moves, nothing to really inspire us. we'll see how things go. Again, there's still some good players out there. This is not over. We'll probably still have like 2 more streams worth of signings to do. But the next team we're going to look at are the New York Giants. The New York Giants, since the opening moments, signed Javon Holland, which, before I get to the rest of the signings, I just want to talk about how funny that signing is. Last year, they let Xavier McKinney walk for 3 years, $15 million a year, because they deemed that's too much to pay a safety. He went to the Packers, led the league in turnovers. No, interceptions, I think. He had like 6 in the first 6 games or some shit, right? Then this offseason, they give the exact same contract to Javon Holland. So, like, while they add Javon Holland to their team, and that's something they didn't have last year, they didn't have it because they chose not to have it last year. They should have had Xavier McKinney. It doesn't make sense for them to give up a 25-year-old safety that is about to enter his prime. And now they've signed a 26-year-old safety that's about to enter his prime. Like, it just cycling in and out. They didn't get better. Like, they just added the safety they should have had last year. And then they paid Darius Slayton. They signed Chauncey Golston, who I think had 4 sacks for the Cowboys last year, so a backup defensive end. And then Chris Board is literally a special teamer. He's a backup linebacker / special teamer. And then when I look at the signings that they made beforehand, they got James Hudson, backup offensive lineman, Roy Robertson Harris, just steady defensive tackle, and then Paulson Adebo. So Paulson Adebo was good. But he had a major injury last year. You must thanks to the GM because yes. Oh, I'm a huge Giants fan because of the Saquon Barkley shit. Like things would have to change dramatically for me to start to hate the Giants again. I just can't hate them. I just cannot hate them. But yeah, man, the Giants, it's just they're in a bit of a circle. And the thing is like everybody knows that their coach is coaching for his job and their GM is GMing for his job. But what have they done to indicate that they want to get dramatically better? Nothing, right? And the crazy thing is that they only have one quarterback under contract right now. You know who it is? Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito is under contract. Drew Lock is a free agent. Daniel Jones is on the Colts. They don't have any other quarterback than Tommy DeVito. So they haven't even figured the quarterback situation out. They haven't really got better. The only look at what these are backups. The other signings I talked about were backups. The only starter they really added are Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland. Javon Holland is replacing Xavier McKinney that they should have had this whole time. Yeah, man, Paulson Adebo is the main addition. Tommy fucking Cutlets, man. So, man, the Giants they're just like you ever seen a car stuck in mud and the tires are spinning and mud is just going everywhere, but the car is going nowhere? That's the Giants. But yeah, not having a great offseason. Having a slightly better offseason. The Buffalo Bills. So, kind of a few things to get at with the Bills. I mentioned last time we did a stream that the only signing they made was Josh Palmer, and I think that's a whole heap of mid. Even though Josh Palmer went to high school like 5 minutes away from where I live, yeah, he's not it, right? Like wide receiver 3, they have like 4 wide receiver 3s. That's not it. What I will say though, Joey Bosa and Michael Hecht are good signings. Now Joey Bosa might only play like, I don't know, 5 games. It might be another Von Miller, like literally a premier old edge rusher that just gets hurt. It might just be that. But look, you can't not make the signing because he's probably going to get hurt. You have the opportunity to get Mega Bosa. You bring in Mega Bosa. Now, how is Joey Bosa going to fare 15 minutes away from the Canadian border after Canada booed the American national anthem? I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. I feel like he might be distracted. But if he finds a way to stay healthy and finds a way to not get distracted, I think he's going to be a great addition because here's the thing. Like you just saw what beats Kansas City. They needed to try their best. Oh, but I thought so I know Nick is like the guy. Like Nick is out there with it. But I heard Joey Bosa is on the same type of time. He's just more quiet about it. Runs in the family type shit. But yeah, they had to at least try. Michael Hecht, very underrated edge rusher, versatile player, can drop into coverage. But yeah, like you got two edge rushers here. This is a great point, Sai. Actually, I'm gonna get to this after. But like I say, I really like the concept of adding two edge rushers. They actually were bringing a lot of their defense back from last year, anyways, and I think their defense was good, but it wasn't great. Um, I think bolstering the edge rush rotation is a great way to try to get better, and they added two guys that I like. So again, I applaud the approach. Now to get to what Sai said here. This Bills team again putting so much pressure on Josh to carry them again. This is spot on. The problem is that they have a bunch of wide receiver threes. They don't have a one or a two, in my opinion. You're out putting the pressure on Josh Allen to be Superman. Their running back rotation was good last year, but I don't think they run the ball enough to say that, oh, their running game is going to carry them. Impossible. Impossible. They never stay committed to the run long enough for you to say that they could run a team into, or like they could through the running game, like win games. So they're just putting Josh Allen in a similar position where, hey, you're gonna have to carry us. You're gonna have to be Superman. It would help if they gave him a great defense if they're going to ask him to do that. But again, I still think they have no business doing that in the first place. So, yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the approach to the offensive side of the ball. But I like the edge rushers. And like I said, there's more time. They need to give Josh options. This is 100% right. This is 100% right. Like having two tight ends and a bunch of like 6, 7 out of 10 receivers is not it. The way their personnel is set up, they should be a run heavy team. I'm not even joking. They should be running the shit out of the ball, but they don't do that either. So yeah, a little bit of lack of direction. Speaking of lack of direction, though, we got the Dallas Cowboys that we're gonna look at. The Dallas Cowboys signed Javonte Williams, who had horrible production for the Broncos. Got benched for undrafted running backs. Robert Jones, get this, bro. What options are even in this? You know what's not a bad point at this point, but like, bro, a Cooper Cup would help. Even if Cooper Cup isn't prime Cooper Cup anymore, it would help. They can't bring back Stephon Diggs, right? So that sucks. Who else is out there? I'll have to look at. You know what? We'll look at the receiver options later. This one is showing us low key kind of ass. That's true. That's true. But yeah, Robert Jones. I don't talk now about this team. Size hilarious. Robert Jones. Do you guys know about him? This guy started 17 games for the Dolphins last year. 17 games for the Dolphins, and they don't want him on the team anymore. That means he's trash. So they're bringing in Robert Jones to come in. I don't know if he's going to start or not. With Zach Martin retiring, they need a right guard. I'm thinking they're going to get that in the draft. But if not, Robert Jones has to play. Solomon Thomas, bust, scrub. They're hoping for the best. Kavontae Turpin, electric return man. And Peyton Turner. Peyton Turner, another bust, another person that they're trying to give a change of scenery to get their best out of them. So Peyton Turner and Solomon Thomas, they're really hoping for the best with those two players. Kavontae Turpin retaining a great special teamer mainly, but then the meaningful additions are some of the worst pieces of Miami and Denver. So this has been a horrible offseason for Dallas. They, aside from not really identifying the best talent, where is it? The most expensive contract they've handed out is Solomon Thomas, $4 million a year. No, I lied. Robert Jones is $4.7 million a year. So they're cheap. They're signing busts. They're not bringing in good players. I talked about the Cowboys being a team that's going to struggle to get better. Actually, I don't know if you guys remember, but when I did the offseason preview series, Miami and Dallas were my two teams that I thought would struggle to get better in the offseason. And it's showing, it's really, it's showing that. I'm going to revisit my tiers that I put every team in for the offseason because I actually think I cooked with that. Like, I told you guys that Philly was going to not be retaining Milton Williams and Josh Sweat. That was not going to happen. I told you guys about the Cowboys and Dolphins kind of struggling to get better. Cincinnati and the Kansas City Chiefs were the other teams I talked about having a hard time getting better. I kind of think I cooked, but we're gonna revisit that because I definitely got a couple situations wrong. Will change, but they are not changing again. Dumb moves. All in Dallas. Shout out to Skip Bayless, man. Greatest tweet ever. That comma was doing a whole lot of heavy lifting. Um, like Skip said. That's the. But yeah, no. Dallas is. You know what it is? Dallas has so much money that they have to hand out to their players. Like they still have to pay Michael Parsons. They just paid CD and Dak like market setting contracts. So man, the money is caught up there. And they're not a cash rich organization because Jerry is not trying to spend. Jerry is trying to take. So yeah, no, Dallas is never gonna change. Another kind of classic franchise that's had a weird offseason, the San Francisco 49ers. So the 49ers are preparing to pay Brock Purdy a lot of money and make him a very wealthy man because there's a lot of tweets out there showing how their team is getting completely stripped down. And yeah, if you look at the additions that they've made, man, Demarcus Robinson. I just realized there's another weird comma here. I gotta get that out of there before I fixate on it. But yeah, so Demarcus Robinson, that's a wide receiver 3 or 4. Got him from the Rams. I think he had like 400 yards, 7 touchdowns. Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock, you got steady safeties from the Falcons and the Giants. Steady at best, by the way. Luke Gifford, who started 17 games for the Titans last year, I think. So we got Titans linebackers now. And yeah, they cut Juszczyk and Leonard Floyd. Now, there was a bunch of rumors about them getting Joey Bosa, which I thought was kind of strange because of their financial approach. And lo and behold, Buffalo is the team that got Bosa. But yeah, man, Niners, they're having, I guess, a more dramatic version of the Eagles offseason of, you just have to keep in mind like what your core is going forward and essentially focused like on spending on that core to keep them, and then whatever you have left, that's whatever you have left. In the Eagles case, they already had Jalen Hurts under contract, so they've kind of thought through a little, like they are further along in the process. They know a little, like they've already factored that big spike of money into their roster construction. The Niners haven't done that at all. The Niners, for the initially now, are just conceptualizing what their cap structure looks like with Purdy on big money, and that involves a lot of their big players not being here anymore. They got rid of Debo. They couldn't pay Greenlaw. They couldn't pay Hufanga. Floyd got cut. Juszczyk got cut. It's rough out here, bro. It's rough out here. Too much hope on Purdy. This is true, man. I think they're really setting up Purdy to fail. I think Purdy is gonna look like Garoppolo pretty soon. The way they felt like they needed to upgrade Garoppolo, they're gonna be in that same spot with Purdy in not too long. Where's this fall off for the fucking Chiefs, man? Let's get 3 teams there in the Super Bowl. Okay, bro. We're gonna talk about the Chiefs. We're gonna talk about the Chiefs. A conversation definitely has to be had there. My Colts are doing great business. Hey, my guy Daniel is in here, bro. Your team got a quarterback named Daniel now, bro. How do you feel? I started the stream with the Colts. I was hoping you'd be here. But damn, it's lit. We finally got Daniel in here. Cause so here's the thing, right? King, you weren't here. Daniel, you weren't here either. I'm gonna run it back on the Colts real quick. The first 2 moves are pretty easy. Like Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum, solid secondary pieces. That's dope. Like you got better. Now you lost 2 offensive linemen. That's gonna be tough. Daniel Jones, though. Daniel Jones is interesting because I think he's the best possible quarterback you could have got that's okay with being a backup. And this is a very crucial thing. It's like a little like they had to thread the needle on this quarterback acquisition because they are fully committed to the idea that they still believe in Anthony Richardson and they still intend to give him every opportunity to be the guy. When that's your stance, you can't just outright go get a great starter because that's giving up on Anthony Richardson, and they don't want to posture like that. They had to get a quarterback that would be okay with being benched. And I think that Daniel Jones is the best possible quarterback you could get that's okay with being benched. So from that standpoint, I don't mind it. He's also the kind of quarterback that I think Steichen could at least work with. I've seen Steichen get Gardner Minshew to the Pro Bowl. I've seen Steichen get Herbert and Hurts' best years. I still believe in Steichen. I don't hate the Daniel Jones move. Like, I hate the fact that they're so, like, here's the thing. I hate that they don't have the guts to just be like, yo, this AR shit hasn't worked out. He needs a lot of development. We're actually just going to make him a backup for a couple of years. We're damn near going to Jordan Love him, right? He's not ready to play. He's going to be Jordan Love. We're going to go get a starter. It's a very ballsy thing to do. It's what I think they should do. But if they're not going to do that, this is the next best thing. So I'm not mad necessarily. Okay, next team we're going to look at. New Orleans Saints. They restructured Tyrann Mathieu. They signed Chase Young, Justin Reed, Juwan Johnson, and Dante Pettis. So, Saints, we talked about them being a team that's in salary cap hell. They have a ton of money on the books, and they're not nearly as good as the money would dictate. So they kind of had a tough decision to make about the team. Did they want to double down and give Kellen Moore more talent, and kind of have the expectation of, we think we're not that bad of a team. We think the coach was the problem. So we're going to go, we're gonna get this coach some more talent, ask him to coach up the players, and turn in a good team next year. Or they could have stripped things down and opted to go young. They're definitely not going young. I guess it looks like they've opted to be as good as they possibly can be. They under no circumstances would have had a lot of money to spend, but they signed Justin Reed. He's 28 years old. So a 28-year-old safety, that's not the kind of move you make when you're building for the future. They paid Chase Young a good amount of money, but Chase Young is really young, no pun intended. I think he's like 25. So that could have been a move for the future. The really telling sign is Juwan Johnson, because Juwan Johnson not only is he's not, let me see how old he is. Because first of all, I don't even think he's that good. And from a production standpoint, from a talent standpoint, an eye test standpoint, he's going to be 29 at the beginning of the year. But yeah, signing a 29-year-old tight end to above market value is not how you start building for the future. So the Saints are trying to be good. I don't think it's going to work. But they restructured Derek Carr yesterday. They restructured Tyrann Mathieu today. They're kicking a lot of money into the future to be able to make these signings. Again, I don't think it's a great approach for the Saints. I don't think it's going to work. I think they're going to find that they just have to strip everything down next year anyways. I think Juwan Johnson might be a part of that. I think Tyrann Mathieu and Justin Reed might be a part of that. But, I mean, I guess it's you got to applaud the ambition, I guess. This certainly puts a decent amount of pressure on Kellen Moore. But yeah, I just hate the Juwan Johnson contract. I like Justin Reed. I like Chase Young. Dante Pettis, that's just a camp body. But yeah, man, the Saints kind of trying to be good, man. Like, you don't sign 28-year-old safeties and 29-year-old tight ends to 10 plus million a year if you're not trying to be good. So bold approach from the Saints. We're going to look at their division rivals next. The Falcons made some signings finally. I don't think they made any signings yesterday. And I'm going to, yesterday. I'm going to double check that right now. So yeah, the Falcons have made 3 signings in free agency. They lost Dahlman, their center, Grady Jarrett, their defensive tackle, and Richie Grant, the safety. And the 3 signings, first of all, one of them is a re-signing. Mike Hughes is a slot corner, and he played for them last year, so they're bringing him back. But the 2 additions are Divine Diablo, linebacker from the Raiders, who's like good but nothing special. And then Leonard Floyd, edge rusher from the Niners that they cut, who is also good, but nothing special. So they've made some pretty mediocre additions to what I thought was a mediocre team. But also, if you look at the stats last year, their offense was more productive than their defense. Like their defense was the issue. I think their front seven has serious issues, and I think that they've done minimal to address those issues. So I'm kind of really concerned about that because if you look at their interior defensive line, um, they just have a bunch of young prospects that haven't produced anything, and David Onyemata, who's like 32. And then at the edge, they again have young draft picks that have no resume, and now they have Leonard Floyd. So like they're very unproven at defensive line, which if you just watch the Super Bowl, you know how important of a position that is and how valuable of a position that is. It's probably the most important thing after quarterback and offensive line. So it's like one of the most important things in football, and they have nothing to show for other than David Onyemata and Leonard Floyd, players in their 30s that could fall off at any moment. I hate what the Falcons have done. Like this is one of my least favorite off seasons. And we've gone through a bunch of these teams. I have a lot of, not great feelings about a lot of these off seasons, but this is one of them. This is definitely one of them, or like one of the worst. But we're going to go from one bird to the next. We're going to go from the Falcons to the Ravens. So Ravens, they've also had a pretty quiet offseason. So they cut Arthur Millette and Marcus Williams, their cap casualties. So actually, I'm going to have to check in with the secondary, see if they have internal options to those pieces. So, I mean, I think they're pretty good with Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, and Kyle Hamilton. But I don't think they have replacements at the two spots beside those players. So, yeah, Baltimore is going to need a couple pieces in the secondary for sure. But in terms of what they got, they re-signed Pat Ricard. But yeah, they got DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is there. King is acting like he's upset in the chat, but bro, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. D-Hop is cooked. D-Hop is cooked. I don't think you have very much to worry about. We just saw Darius Slay hold his own against DeAndre Hopkins. You can ask him to do the same when the Ravens play the Steelers next year. Yeah, man. That is, I mean, it's been a pretty uneventful offseason for the Ravens. Literally the one outside addition that they've made, I think, is somebody who's cooked. Gonna look to see if I'm forgetting somebody that they signed yesterday. No, I'm not missing anybody. But yeah, so Baltimore hasn't done much yet. I'm looking at the rest of their team and what their big needs are. They got to replace Makari, so I think they need an offensive lineman. And then defensively, a couple pieces in the secondary, and then probably an edge rusher as well, because Peter mentioned them needing an edge. So they still have some needs, and they haven't done anything to get better other than Nuke. So, I mean, yeah, I think Baltimore, as is, they've never been a splashy first couple of days of free agency kind of an organization, much like the Steelers have been for a long time. Neither of these teams splash the cash at the beginning of the process. These are the teams that tend to pick up the better value pieces on day 4, 5, 6 into, the rest of the offseason. So Baltimore, it definitely an incomplete grade on their offseason. I don't think they're going to make no moves. But yeah, these just the kind of signings we've seen. They don't make those kind of signings. And as is, think about how many teams that I've gone through with negative feelings. Like, I don't like a ton of the signings that have happened in the NFL as of now anyways. So it's like not these teams that haven't done much yet. It's not like they're missing out on much. But yeah, bro, you're good. You're good. You don't have to stress too much about Nuke. He's cooked. He got he even signed his deal is like $6 million. $6 million. Devontae got 26. Devontae Adams. So yeah, you're good, bro. You're good. Next team we're looking at the Denver Broncos. Shout out to Paul Severance wherever he's at. But the Denver Broncos got Dre Greenlaw and Trent Sherfield. So Sherfield, I'm pretty sure, is a special teamer. Dre Greenlaw from the Niners, or he's going to join Hufanga as the other San Francisco 49er to join Denver. But yeah, Denver's made some I think they made two signings that are just like depth / special teams kind of signings with Part and Sherfield. But yeah, two major additions, Hafunga and Greenlaw. I think they need to add some offensive weapons. Like, I think they needed a receiver. And as King pointed out, there's not a ton of good receiver options. So maybe that's for the draft. But if not, I think they also could have used a running back. Maybe that's not a great free agency thing either. Point being, I don't think I saw the Denver Broncos play offensive football last year and thought, oh yeah, this team is sick, right? I felt more that way about the defense. And they made that defense better. Like I said, the Broncos defense was elite at times last year. They graded out as the best defense in football by EPA. They had their elite moments, but then Jameis went for almost 500 yards against them when they had a couple injuries. So this is a defense that needed to add some depth. And yeah, they got Dre Greenlaw and Hafunga, two, linchpins from the Niners defense 2 years ago that went to the Super Bowl. So two pieces that the Niners really missed last year. And they got both of them. So Broncos defense, it should be a serious defense next year. Orange Crush might be back, but yeah, I love both those two signings. Even though Greenlaw came off the major injury, the Achilles, I didn't watch to see how back he was, but also I don't think he's gonna have he doesn't have to be Superman in this defense. There's a lot of talent here. So yeah, I think they'll be just fine. Next team we're going to look at, the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so I think Sai is here. I wonder if Time to Shine is here. They signed Christian Fulton and Robert Tonyan. I kind of think the Chiefs are having a bad offseason. And I'll get into why. But yeah, so they've made 4 signings now, these two. No, 5 signings. Yeah, 5 signings. So of their 5 signings, Elijah Mitchell, which is a running back, just a committee member of a running back battle, or not a battle, a committee. They signed a long snapper, which is valuable but not impactful. The 3 signings we can really look at are Christian Fulton, Jalen Moore, and you know what? Tonyan you can't even count as well, because Tonyan is also like a tight end by committee thing. So the 2 signings that they've made are Jalen Moore and Christian Fulton. Jalen Moore, I already talked about it in the first stream. He's somebody who hasn't really played much. When he did play, he played well. But players that haven't played much, they're not tested enough. So he's unproven and untested. That might go really bad, or it might go well. It's a complete gamble. And I just think that the Chiefs are too good to be gambling with Patrick Mahomes' left tackle. I think that's absurd. And then this move here, Christian Fulton, they needed to upgrade the center back position for sure. That's definitely the case, because they played, I think, a guy named Connor last year. What's his name? Chamari Connor. Yeah, I don't think he was it. I don't think he was good enough. So they have Christian Fulton now. My only concern is that Christian Fulton has been really bad for a lot of his career. And then last year for the Chargers, he played as a starter and he was acceptable apparently. But even when last year, in the year that was supposed to be good, I still feel like I remember him getting cooked. I think Rashad Bateman cooked him when Baltimore played the Chargers. So that happened. I talked to Jen Will about Christian Fulton. Jen Will said he wasn't good. So I don't know, man. I don't know for sure that they've signed good players yet. Christian Fulton and Jalen Moore might both not be great at football. Robert Tonyan is an old man. James Winchester is a long snapper, and Elijah Mitchell can never stay healthy. I don't know if the Chiefs have gotten better this year. That's a very real concern. So as of yet, not thrilled with their offseason. There's still time, obviously, to make moves. But, this isn't great. And they have too much good stuff going on for them to be having these kind of moves. I don't get it. Because it's not even like Christian Fulton got paid nothing. Christian Fulton got paid $10 million a year. $10 million a year. I feel like they could have got a better player for $10 million a year. So yeah, we're gonna have to see what they do, but I'm not thrilled with what they've done yet. The signs are all gamble and low money moves. This is true, but this is the thing also. I can understand it from the perspective of, the Chiefs and the Eagles are in the same spot. You spent so much money on your teams because they're good, so you're not really in a position to spend too much more money. That part I can understand. But yeah, um, it just feels like there's got to be a better option than Jalen Moore and Christian Fulton. Like, I understand that it's not going to be big, great. It's not going to be big money signings, but surely it doesn't have to be that risky. But the next team we're going to look at, the New England Patriots, the signings. So they made a bunch of signings on day one, and I talked about them all in the last stream. For anybody tuning in that's new, if you want to hear about those defensive signings, you can tune into. I actually think I did. They may have been the first team I discussed on the stream yesterday. Since yesterday, the signings that they made are Josh Dobbs and Mac Hollins. So finally, some offensive signings. The Josh Dobbs one is really interesting because they have Joe Milton, and there were some rumors about Joe Milton getting traded. And I always thought that was crazy, but apparently they're entertaining it. Apparently the quarterbacks in this year's draft and free agency are so bad that Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker actually have trade value as young quarterbacks that have been developed in the NFL a little bit. I think Joe Milton had a pretty good game against the Bills in Week 18 last year. So apparently he might get traded. If Josh Dobbs' signing helps them get a draft pick for Joe Milton, that's awesome. Because apparently they would be looking for a 4th-round pick. So they may have basically just signed a 4th-round pick with Josh Dobbs. That's fascinating. For sure, though, the Pastronaut is back. So yeah, I mean, NFL standard backup. I can't complain from that standpoint. Mac Hollins, that's a weird one because like I feel like they have enough receivers that are kind of just okay. Like I don't think they needed another okay receiver. I think they could have gone for somebody more established. But as King said, not the best free agency for that. So they got this guy who is he is a special teams demon. He is, I guess, a good culture setter. He does walk with no shoes most of the time. So yeah. Not that Mac Hollins is going to make things worse, but I don't know how much better he's going to make things at the wide receiver spot. We're going to wrap up with the Patriots, and we're going to move on to the Philadelphia Eagles, who I guess I did a little bit of talking about already. But yeah, so a bit of context for the Eagles, right? In 2017, when they won the Super Bowl, part of what happened after that is the Eagles team went to shit because they made a point to try to run it back with the team that won the Super Bowl. So they made a point to borrow from the future to pay the team that won the Super Bowl. And the team just slowly got worse and worse and worse. And they ended up having some pretty aged players. Alshon Jeffrey, a huge part of the Super Bowl team. But then they paid him and he got old and injured, right? He wasn't the only guy. That happened to that team. So I think that experience has really changed how the Eagles look at their team, and they determined that we're not going to sign everybody. We're going to identify a core and we're going to sign them. And unfortunately, everybody else is going to have to go. So here's the core: A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, the whole offensive line. So Mailata, Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Cam Jurgens, because they're going to pay Cam Jurgens, by the way, right? Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. That's a lot of players to pay. They don't have to pay Cooper or Quinyon for 2 more summers, but next year we're going to have to pay Jalen Carter $40 million a year. Next year we're also going to have to probably pay Nolan Smith $20 million a year. We're going to have to pay Cam Jurgens like $15 million a year this summer. If we want to keep Reed Blankenship, that's probably another $10 million a year, and he's younger than CJGJ. So like the thing is, the Eagles team is so expensive. Unfortunately, you just have to make some business decisions. This Kenny Pickett trade, I think, is a great example of the fact that we had an opportunity to get a little bit of draft capital for a quarterback that we obviously don't expect to see the football field. And we said, you know what? We need that draft capital because we're going to need to draft. There's a lot of pieces we're going to have to replenish. We got to replenish a Milton Williams. We got to replenish a Josh Sweat. We have to replenish CJGJ. But it's not going to happen with money. Like, it's not going to happen with free agents. That has to happen through the draft. There's no other way this can happen. We have to either get really lucky in the trade market, or we have to draft and develop talent. That just is what it is. So we have The thing you guys are also not really realizing, Sweat and Milton Williams are going to get us third round compensatory picks next year. So we're going to have a flush of draft capital next year. We have a excess draft capital this year because we have like we have like 4 5th round picks. Well, we just have to draft these pieces, hope somebody hits, and that's just gonna have to be what it is. As far as the trade goes for CJGJ, it sucks because he's such a good playmaker and he's so fun. What a personality. Now, apparently, his beef with Darius Slay was not a big, but it was a part of the reason. And for you guys that don't know what happened, Darius Slay got on his podcast and he just talked about how, like, oh, Reed Blankenship is going to be like the next leader of the Eagles secondary. And CJGJ got on Twitter and was like, the hell are you talking about? And just went on a bit of a rant about it. And apparently that like is a small example of what used to happen behind the scenes a lot. And they just decided like, look, CJGJ is great, but he's a bit of a headache and we need more money. So unfortunately, he just has to go. We have Sidney Brown. I don't think Sidney Brown is that great at football. Hold on. I'm surprised Eagles move like this. I can understand they know this team can win another Super Bowl. That's why. But hold on. What do you mean moving like this? Because I think the risk would be keeping all the players. But yeah, unfortunately, like I would love for them to take more risks and keep Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, but we just have to be a little bit responsible, at least financially. So that's that. But as far as the players we're getting back, Kenyon Green is trash, but so was Mekhi Becton. Right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's some secret gem hidden in Kenyon Green that nobody's like uncovered before. Nah, he's not straight up just not, he's not been good at football. He's only 24, so he's young. He's younger than Becton was last year. Becton was 25. So this is the thing, like when you have an offensive line coach as good as Jeff Stoutland, you just feed him high draft picks and hope that it works out. So that's just what that is. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, in his career, he has 1 touchdown and 10 interceptions. Now, however, he played in Cleveland, right? So I actually I like DTR in the draft. I was actually really excited when we just traded for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and that's an irrational excitement. He's never going to touch a football field for the Eagles in the regular season, and I'm probably only ever going to get to see him hoop in the preseason. That being said, I like him as a quarterback 3. Bucket. Like Tanner McKee is ready to be a backup. Tanner McKee is a baller. I'm telling you guys right now, Tanner McKee is going to beat somebody next year. Hurts always misses at least 1 game. Tanner McKee is going to give somebody buckets. Oh, it's about to be Tanner season next year. It's going to be fun as fuck too. But yeah, no, DTR, why not? So yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a fun off season for the Eagles, but bro, we just have to have a good draft class. It's as simple as that. Bengals signed Oren Burks and Joseph Asai. So again, I talked about the Bengals being a team that's going to struggle to get better. The hell kind of offseason are they having, man? Bengals, let me just see if I'm missing any signings from yesterday. Okay. Yeah, so they got TJ Slaton, they got BJ Hill, Samaje Perine, and then yeah, they added to it today with Oren Burks and Joseph Asai. Joseph Asai, he's been on the team for the last few years. He's the guy that pushed Mahomes out of bounds to get that penalty to send the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. He's that guy. So I mean, he's okay, rotational edge rusher. And then they got Oren Burks from the Eagles, who has been a career backup that, oddly enough, played in the last 2 Super Bowls. Because he came into he's played for the Eagles throughout the playoffs when Nakobe Dean got hurt. And then he played for the Niners when Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl. So quietly, they got the guy who played in the last 2 Super Bowls. Maybe that means he's going to play in the next Super Bowl too, and the Bengals are going to make it. Probably not, though. But yeah, he played really, like, here's the thing. He's never really played well, but then last year for the Eagles, he did. I think that's Vic Fangio and just generally the Eagles defensive line. But yeah, man, like I don't think these are great signings. Like the Bengals lost a more expensive linebacker, Akeem Davis Gaither, who went to the Cardinals. He cost twice as much as Oren Burks. They have another linebacker, Jermaine Pratt, who requested a trade. So like they're getting gashed, and their solution is a guy who's never really been a starter before. Oren Burks also isn't young; he's like 29. So I don't think that's gonna work either. But again, like I don't know, we'll see. Um, but yeah, no, not a great offseason. I told you guys that they were going to struggle to get better. Trey Hendrickson's going to get traded. And like I said, this defense is going to give up like 45 points a game next year, man. If you are drafting, if you're playing fantasy football next year, draft Bengals. Um, but yeah, next team we're going to look at the Tennessee Titans, another team having a strange offseason. They made 2 signings since the first day. I'm going to check to see the signings that they made that I may have missed. No, I talked about Dan Moore. I talked about Sebastian Joseph Day. Oh, they got Johnny Hecker, so they got a punter, which is good because they're gonna suck. They're probably gonna punt a lot, so it's gonna be helpful to have a good punter. But as far as what they got here, they got Cody Barton from the Broncos. This is the linebacker that basically the Broncos wanted to upgrade with Dre Greenlaw, so he's solid. But again, the Broncos wanted to upgrade him. Um, and then they got Xavier Woods. His claim to fame, by the way, is that in his career, he's played 7 years in the NFL. He's basically averaged at like 98% snap counts. So this guy just generally has played like every down of football of his career. But he's just a bang average player. So they lost somebody. Who was it that they lost? They lost a safety. Or I'm tripping. No, I guess I'm tripping. They just needed an upgrade, I guess. But yeah, they're upgrading probably trash to average with Xavier Woods, and they're probably upgrading trash to above average with Cody Barton. So these are some stabilizing signings. Sebastian Joseph Day is just kind of like bringing back a steady backup. Hecker, the punter, is obviously he's a punter. Like that's not really a dramatic improvement. Their big move this offseason is Dan Moore. Yeah, he's an Iron Man kind of a player, but bro, their like crown jewel of free agency is Dan Moore, the left tackle that they had to get because they realized that their left tackle that they drafted last year can only play right tackle because he's only ever played right tackle. Absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd set of moves. But yeah, next team we're gonna look at this Pittsburgh Steelers. We got Kings, Pittsburgh Steelers. They got Kenny Gainwell and Malik Harrison. So they lost Elandon Roberts. And it looks like Elandon Roberts was the first linebacker off the bench because they had Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson. So Malik Harrison is going to be that player, I guess. He's going to be the first linebacker off the bench. The kind of strange thing I'm looking at is that like they're paying Malik Harrison, I think, like 10 million a year. No, sorry, 5 million a year, like 2 years, 10 million. Let me just confirm that. Because if so, that's kind of way too much for that role. Am I tripping? Malik Harrison, yeah, 2 years, 10 million to be a backup linebacker. I think that's really weird. But maybe he's going to be a core special teamer. Like that's probably the real answer here. He's probably going to be a premium special teamer and also a backup linebacker. So that's maybe where the money comes from. But felt like that was a bit of an overpay. But I mean, not bad at his role, I guess. But yeah, then they got Kenny Gainwell to come in and probably be a part of the committee with Jaylen Warren. I think Kenny Gainwell is a great backup. Like I actually think he's really good at pass protecting. He's he's a solid pass catcher, solid runner. He's a great backup. But the thing about Pittsburgh is I don't think they're looking for backups. They're looking for the starter because Jaylen Warren is a great backup. Cordero Patterson is a great backup. We don't need any more great backups, brother. We have 3 great backups. This makes me wonder, are they going to trade Jaylen Warren? I don't know. But the point is, they need a starter. Now, if they wanted to draft a starter, that's dope. I just don't think that they can afford to draft a running back round 1. I think that there's other parts of the team they should be drafting high in the draft. But yeah, like King said, man, job not done. Job not done. DK was a great start. but they haven't really built on that. Since DK, they got Slay and Kenny Gainwell. They're just raiding the Eagles, and they have Andy Weidel in the front office, who came from Philadelphia. So maybe that's the connection there. But yeah, it's just you got DK and a couple Eagles that like, I mean, you got a 34-year-old cornerback and a backup running back. So like, yeah, job not finished for sure. Damn, where did we finish off? Oh yeah, Steelers. Okay. Next team we're gonna look at the New York Jets. They got Andre Cisco and Brandon Stevens. This is super strange, right? Because Andre Cisco is probably going to be an upgrade to Ashton Davis. They lost Ashton Davis to Miami, but I think Cisco is an upgrade. Cisco had played his whole career in Jacksonville. I think he showed some good things in Jacksonville, but Jacksonville obviously just isn't a great situation. But Brandon Stevens is strange because Brandon Stevens was a full-time player in Baltimore. Like he started a lot of games. And truthfully, like I thought he was a weakness. I really genuinely thought that Brandon Stevens was a weakness. I feel like he's a part of the reason that they struggled whenever they struggled. And I just didn't think he was that good at football. Like I kind of am shocked that Aaron Glenn watched that guy and was like, oh, we need him. I shout out the Steagles. I think that happened in World War II. The two teams merged and became the Steagles. Look it up. But yeah, man. This Jets offseason, man. I like Fields. I like Cisco. What the hell is this Brandon Stevens signing? The fact that DJ Reed got $16 million a year, I want to say, and this guy's getting $12 million a year makes no sense to me whatsoever. I think it's kind of shocking. It's outrageous. And I would have gone a different direction. But yeah, he's going to play the opposite side of Sauce Gardner. I know that defense is going to play a ton of man coverage. Maybe there's not as many man-like corners that are super comfortable with playing man. But I don't particularly think Brandon Stevens played man well. So yeah, I kind of hate that signing, man. I really kind of hate that signing. So we're going to have to see a lot more from the Jets. Not even thinking about like the fact that they need good players. I also think the Jets like generally need like a volume of players as well. Like they've lost so many free agents. Sorry, they had so many free agents and a lot of guys they didn't want back. They need a high volume of players, bro. They've signed 3 players. They need at least like 10 more. So yeah, we're gonna have to see some more moves. So we're down now to the teams that made single signings. So we're gonna be able to get through these last 7 teams quickly. Packers signed Nate Hobbs, slot corner from Vegas. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I've seen Las Vegas play last year and I was closely paying attention to the slot corner, but apparently this guy is straps, one of the best slot corners in football. Allegedly, the Packers got him. I hope that's the case because the other free agency signing they made, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Aaron Banks. Nate Hobbs, does everybody need a slot corner? Yes, because that's basically a starting position now. But do the Packers need much more than a slot corner? Also, yes. So, yeah, kind of, I need to see more. This is not it. Jaguars signed Rob Hainsey. Rob Hainsey played center for the Bucks, I believe, last year. Played well. Good player, like a good steady player, nothing special. But the Jaguars need something, those kind of players as well. The Jaguars had nothing in the middle of their line. They lost both their guards and their center. Mitch Morse retired. So the general manager came out and said, hey, we want to upgrade the interior of the offensive line. They signed Makari. They signed Hainsey. So that's 2 spots. I like it. I'm always going to be a fan of stacking up the offensive line. They're also going to draft beyond those 2 players. But yeah, good signings. Seattle signed Josh Jones, bro. This team is something else, man. Shout out to, I think his name was Aryan. In the chat yesterday, Seahawks fan, he called John Snyder a terrorist for how much he neglected the offensive line. That shit could never be that couldn't possibly be more true. This guy is a depth signing. I pray to God that this guy doesn't see the field because he's a backup swing tackle. He should not be starting. If he starts, bro, pray for Sam Darnold. pray for Sam Darnold because this is not going to be good. Commanders signed safety Will Harris from the Saints. Will Harris is going to replace Jeremy Chin. Jeremy Chin, definitely the better player. Dan Quinn does have a way with maximizing talent, though. So for the Commanders' sake, they probably are going to hope that they can get the most out of Will Harris the way they got the most out of Jeremy Chin. But this is definitely a downgrade. Definitely a downgrade. Oh, bro, that would have been hilarious. But also, like, similarly, Sam Darnold is fucked in both situations. Buccaneers signed edge rusher Anthony Nelson. I think he was on the team last year. So this is somebody that they have familiarity with. Yeah. So edge rusher, that was solid for them. Decent depth. They have their two starters in Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby. So just good little bit of depth here. Nothing crazy to write home about, though. Another example of good depth, the Lions signed Dan Skipper, famously for catching a touchdown against Dallas that didn't count because of somebody not being eligible. So Dan Skipper quietly has more touchdowns than some people's favorite receivers. And then he's going to be there in Detroit again to be valuable depth / a red zone target. So shout out to him. I hope he's getting paid to justify that. All the overtime that he does as a red zone target. And then the very last team and signing we're going to look at, the Rams signed Coleman Shelton. I did not know who this guy was until I saw the signing. And then I did some research into him, and he started 17 games for the last 2 years. He started 17 games for the Bears last year. Not a great sign. But then 17 games for the Rams the year before that. So perhaps he's a fit in the Rams scheme and just not a fit in the Bears scheme. But this is their center that they're probably going to start. They moved Avila to guard, and they had a gap at center, and this is probably going to be the guy. If McVay had him for years, started him 17 games and wants him back, I'm assuming McVay is going to get the most out of him. So yeah, I don't think this signing is going to go bad for them necessarily, but yeah, that's it, people. We ran through, I want to say, like 60 signings and like 25 teams. Yeah, hell of a stream, people. We're at hour 42 minutes in, 11 people locked in live. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Likes and subscriptions, very important forms of engagements for the growth of a YouTube channel. Yeah, these streams are a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing them. Feel free to get active in the chat. These, I think they always are more fun when the chat is jumping. So don't be shy. Feel free to get in the chat, get active, let your thoughts out. We definitely don't bite. But yeah, I'll probably be doing this tomorrow again. I'm assuming there's going to be enough free agency signings to do something like this. And we're just going to keep doing these on a nightly basis until the moves run out. So like I said, subscribe to make sure you don't miss when I'm live. Don't move like Dallas. Run up the likes. Facts. Run up the numbers unlike Dallas, people. But yeah, this is what we're going to do. Nightly streams until the moves run out. And then we're going to pivot to the draft after that. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. This was a lot of fun. I hope to see you guys again in the chat tomorrow. And I'm out. Take care.